That's good.
Look at that, look at the lean.
Let's go. I'm gonna do you a spinach aubergine chickpea curry.
Right.
No, I was gonna do a dessert, but then all week, bless you, you've been so sick, so ill. You called me up, like, yeah, for the podcast next week. So I thought I could better just fill you with junk.
Yeah.
I thought I'm gonna give you something healthy. First Pulp Kitchen dessert episode will have to be another time. A sickness remedy.
Thank you.
It's a go-to.
I'm not sick anymore. I was just a bit ill. I had, the cold, the version of the cold that we have in 2021 is much worse than we've ever had.
It's the twindemic, they're calling it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah.
Twindemic. It's the COVID flu combo that's going to take us out.
Oh, so is it like the meme with the sweaty man where he's trying to choose the two buttons and equally bad options?
I'm really medieval in what I think are cures for illnesses. I genuinely think a good curry and a run outside will actually cure most things.
George, I've got some leeches.
Talia's like, James, you just need to go to sit. I'm like, nah, I'll run it off. Because when you run or like you exercise, you feel all the
I know you
come out.
Yeah, but also
I think that is me cleansing my soul.
Yeah, I get it. But
Yeah.
I'm sure there's your body also needs rest.
And I know that, and I rest,
Right.
but I'm also kind of like, I do this thing whenever I see a doctor outside of a hospital.
Yeah.
I always love to myth bust. I'm so annoying. I'm like, so when I crack my knuckles, just because I'm doing a census of all the doctors I know, and I'll give them like 3, and they'll be like, you're the worst person in the world. But then I really enjoy it. You know that Curb episode where he can't ask a doctor a question outside of the GP practice?
No,
he's like, you can't just see. Can you check out this mole? And he's like, Larry, you're booking an appointment.
Yeah. I've seen the one where it's he meets his doctor's son, and the doctor's son's like, oh, you've got a rash on your neck. That looks like normal dermatitis. My dad can prescribe you with an ointment for that. And he's like, yeah, thank you, but I think I'll see your father about that.
Yeah.
And he goes to see the dad. He's like, I heard you wouldn't take a consultation for my son. He's like, your son is not a doctor. You're a doctor. Yeah. Anyway, this is getting cold. So look, tell me what it is.
Basically, this is spinach, aubergine, and chickpea curry with some basmati rice and some lime, coriander, avocado on the side. It's a great go-to for a Sunday night. Again, if you're feeling sick and you just want something to warm your heart, it is completely plant-based. You can, if you want, sprinkle some feta on top. Okay. I won't tell anyone.
With that in mind, I'm going to have some of this. I'm going to just take a little forkful of the ramekin that you've taken of the curry.
Presentation.
10 out of 10 for presentation. But I agree.
We really tried for the presentation.
The plant-based angle is a far cry from the Reuben sandwich we had.
Yeah. And please follow us on Instagram if you want to see the full recipe. We'll be posting a picture of this and how to make it with what ingredients.
We better do that.
Yeah, we better do that. So it starts like all good curries do, frying off onion, crushed garlic, fresh chili. Yeah. You add your spices. I like to just throw in a handful of fresh tomatoes because you get that added sweetness.
Yeah.
Bit of tomato puree. Then you've got a really good curry paste. That's like the foundation of it. Throw in some chopped aubergine. Fry that off for a bit. 2 cans of chopped tomatoes. Reduce. Chickpeas. Rinse them off. Throw them in maybe 45 minutes before the end.
Fantastic.
I was working from home today and I was kind of babysitting it.
That's one of the best things about working from home is the thing you have on the hob, literally on the bubbling away.
When you start smelling it from the other room, you're like, oh, what have I made?
Aubergine is like the MVP of so many recipes because anything with sauce in it, I'm like, you got to put an aubergine in there because it will just soak up. It's like if you were a comedian, the aubergine is the best member of the audience. It's the member of the audience that laughs at everything. It just soaks up all the good stuff and gives it back.
You know what the aubergine is? The aubergine is a thirsty vegetable. It wants to take in.
I mean, literally with the emoji.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a thirsty. But it is. It soaks it up. I have a lot of fun with the courgette. I mean, I'm a big courgette guy.
Bet you do.
I love that. Sometimes a plate of fried or grilled courgettes.
Question.
Answer.
So have you noticed the avocado? I've made it very limey and zesty. Do you like the sourness contrasted with the curry?
James, I don't love it. James, I don't like it. I love it.
Simon Gal over there.
Really
I don't like it.
Oh, look, I tell you what, I'm going to pour some of this curry out.
Sorry, I served the curry in a weird bowl purely for presentation
reasons.
When I'm eating this, watching Curb on a Sunday night, I would have it slopped into a bowl, or I'd get it on the sofa.
You wouldn't be wearing any trousers.
No trousers. I just immediately mix it up all together to congeal it.
Picking bits of poppadom out your belly button. You're a much better cook than I A, anticipated, and B, than me. You're a better cook than me.
Well, I don't think we ever cooked together.
No.
We never cooked at uni. And then if we did, I think someone else cooked. And I think every time I see you, we're either going out or we're in a rush somewhere and we'll buy supermarket pizza and whack that in the oven.
Yeah, disgraceful, really. We really took a gamble doing a food and film podcast.
It could have been really disappointing.
James, you've given me crackers again. Thanks so much.
So a couple of weeks ago, I told you I was going to go see The Last Duel.
Oh, yeah.
I did go and see it, and I thought it was interesting and really different to what I thought that film was going to be. Because I think I saw the trailer for it and the marketing, and I watched it, but I don't think I thought too deeply about it. So I saw the trailer and I saw, okay, cool, Ridley Scott involved, other great people involved. So if you didn't know, this is The Last Duel. It's directed by Ridley Scott. It's also starring and produced by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and it's their first film that they've written together since Good Will Hunting, which came out in
1997.
1997. So a good, 20-something years since they wrote something together. And I was like, yeah, I'm sold. I'm in. Adam Driver, Jodie Comer, I'm in. And it looked by the trailer that it was going to be this sense of what happened, who said who said what really happened. And I ended up coming out of that thinking it was something really different and I think a bit better than what I thought it was going to be.
Can I ask about this book as someone who hasn't seen it?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's about the last duel in medieval France, which was about a noblewoman's wife who was raped.
So basically, The Last Duel is set in 1300s France,
Right.
so Middle Ages.
Yeah.
I knew literally nothing about that period of history. I did go with a historian, which helped after my girlfriend studied history, and she actually studied the region, which really helped.
Sure.
Get a historian, take it. But yeah, so it's set in 1300s in France during the time when they're at war. They're like warring with Scotland, and there's all sorts going on. The film takes place over a course of about 5 or 6 years, and this has basically 3 acts, and you relive the same 6-year period from the perspective of 3 different characters. The first time you experience it is through the eyes of a character called Jean Le Carrouge, played by Matt Damon. Then you see it from Adam Driver's perspective, and then finally you see it from Lady Marguerite or Jodie Comer's perspective. And it's one of those where, like, you get the concept. You're going to see different scenes played out differently. But I really thought it would be a sense of, like, it will reveal what really happened. And what's good about this film is that that's not what it is. It's not a study of, like, what happened. It's a pure study of perspective.
Right.
And that's why I thought it was really interesting. For those of you who don't know, the idea of it being The Last Duel was, this was one of the last times that in medieval times, if there was a legal dispute between 2 parties, they would fight to the death to solve the dispute, and it was seen as whoever was right, God clearly chose the righteous one and let them live, and that would be like solved under the king. And in The Last Duel, the king kind of says, "Well, can we do a duel? Is that still a thing we do?" Like, yeah, it's still part of our law that we can do that. And the king's like, "Well, yeah, fine."
Does he say it like that? Are we still doing the duel thing?
A little bit. He's kind of like, "Oh, is that something we can do?" And his advisor's in very different language. He's like, "Well, it's part of the law, so if we want to do it."
Says it right here.
It is set in France, and the language, the accents are not French. You kind of got this very well. We are knights of the realm. And Jean Le Carrouge, what do you think we should do?
Right.
And it's like, well, Jean Le Gris agrees that it was differently. It's kind of like the voices are a bit. If Will Ferrell was doing an SNL sketch set in the Middle Ages, I am a knight of the realm, and I will pass this on to you, my squire. So it's a little bit distracting when it's meant to be French, but it isn't, and everyone's called Jean Le Carrouge.
Jean does something.
Jean does something. And yeah, so what happens is you have Matt Damon, who's married to Lady Marguerite, and from something that happens, Lady Marguerite says that this man, played by Adam Driver, Jean Le Gris, came over when you were away and raped me. And there's this whole thing where she says it was rape, he says it wasn't, and you've got this whole thing that escalates from there. And the 2 of them, who already don't like each other, end up challenging each other to the death.
Right.
And again, what I said, so you're going to see this perspective played out 3 different times.
Yeah.
And the first time you see it from Matt Damon's perspective. And I actually really liked Matt Damon in this film because he plays a very different character to what he's done before. And I actually think he was doing something that I hadn't seen Matt Damon do. And especially towards the end, when you're seeing him from a very different perspective, I actually really thought that's an interesting way to play a character. Adam Driver and Jodie Comer's performances are brilliant. Even if I have problems with the film, but worth seeing because I do think this film would not have worked and would not have been able to pull itself off. and they wouldn't have been able to pull it off if those two central performances weren't as good as they were.
Right.
And what it became about ultimately, as I've said before about perspective, is not about whether or not someone was or wasn't raped, sexually assault. It became about what is the perspective of someone who would think of doing something, and what is the perspective of someone who experienced that, and what are all the other things about it. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Were you interested in it?
Yeah, I think when I first heard about it, I was kind of on the fence. I thought Ridley's a bit unreliable, actually, sometimes.
Funny enough, for someone like a director like Ridley Scott, I think he used to have a real seal of quality attached to his name. And I think if Ridley Scott's directed Gladiator, Alien, which we already talked about, The Martian most recently. I think he used to carry a lot more weight, and I think now it's less of a huge guarantee of quality.
And I'd said this before. I'd seen All the Money in the World, which was his previous film, which I thought was really a bit of a mess. And but then I was when Matt Damon was doing the press tour for Stillwater, his recent film. He mentioned he's like, I've got The Last Duel coming up, and he explained it. And I thought that sounds actually really interesting. That's how I knew about the fact that it was with Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
But I've heard increasingly from people that whether or not it might be flawed here, flawed there, I should check it out. It's really interesting. I think it's kind of it's already not showing in cinemas near me. I think it's really suffered. So it's a real shame because I really did want to catch that on the big screen.
And not to sort of flex it over you, I'm glad I did see it in the cinema purely because it was a really challenging watch in a good way.
Literally,
there are some things that are really hard to take in, and I'm glad that I saw it in an environment which was completely closed off and I could take it in, because I worry if I watched it at home I would be slightly distracted and not completely focused on all of those things. There are a couple of really nice detailed moments that you're seeing something for the second time or seen for the third time and you're like, that is different, that wasn't said, that character doesn't think they said that, so there are a load of things that you see and you're like, okay, so that's different, that person doesn't think, and there are a load of things where it's exactly the same, but the interpretation was different.
I think this is why it interests me now, because I didn't realize that that's actually quite a very modern mode of storytelling for a very, historical period piece, isn't it? That kind of setting with that mode of storytelling, I think is quite an interesting contrast, and that's why I'd be interested to see. Told from different perspectives, that's usually saved for crime films.
Sure. Vantage point,
or the end of Ocean's 11. The reveal. Oh, actually, it was this the whole time, and for it actually to be about like a trauma like that, and in the Middle Ages. Yeah, that's piqued my interest. That's all I need.
I remember, so I saw it with my girlfriend. We both came out of the screening and we were like, whoa, that was a challenging watch, but in a good way. And then we just started really going over all the differences and why. And it wasn't like I thought it was. Like, what really happened? And actually, if I was to criticize it, by the time you get to this final duel, it's not what's important. What's important is not what happened, although I was slightly interested to see where it would go. What was interesting, again, was like getting into the mind of someone who thought events were like this way, and actually they perceived something to be so different. And of course, like the tragic irony of this whole thing is that the conversations that they're having about whether or not something is or isn't sexually violent is depending on whether or not you can take pleasure from sex. And if you became pregnant from a rape, if you have to have an orgasm to get pregnant, so is it even rape if you enjoyed it? All these horrible questions actually still being debated in courts today. So it's unfortunately really relevant film to today, and you can look out at this and feel very uncomfortable about the state of the world now.
Do you know that thing about it being about perspective, though? I think it's quite resonant because I feel like in the past decade, maybe even in the past 5 years, with the increased boom in documentary viewing, we've realised that everyone actually, it's like that thing they say in I, Tonya, it's like everyone has their own truth actually.
Yeah.
And there is this idea that there is one empirical set version of events is, we've seen it in countless documentaries where people's events counter one another and
sources in history.
Yeah, right? And it is all perception and it is all perspective, and I feel like narratives like that are increasingly relevant because we are so individualized at the moment, and the way that things are given to us and the way that we perceive them is so unique to our
And it breaks it
Yeah,
up
I
like that.
see.
So the film opens and it's black screen and it says the truth according to Jean Le Carrouge.
Yeah, that's
And
the
you
truth
get-
according to
And you get the Matt Damon's
Yeah,
perspective.
what
And
is
then
truth?
after about 35 minutes, black screen, the truth according to Jean Le Carrouge, which is then Adam Driver. And then finally it will go on to do Lady Marguerite's version. And
I really hope I can see it. I really hope that sounds really, really cool.
I think if I was to criticize it, I would say that it did feel a little bit like it was trying to have its cake and eat it. So, again, like the way in which I saw the trailer for it and was marketed to me, I was like, big, sweeping, period drama, big battle, like gritty, Ridley Scott-esque, flowy dresses and knights in armor. So I was like, oh, like it's that kind of film. And I think if I was to, you know, if you were going to be really cynical about Game of Thrones, ending out of it, taking aside the finale, you could say to some extent, it did feel, especially in the earlier seasons, that it was this little like seedy, come see your tits and your dragons and also your fights. But I think they actually got away with a lot of that because they were also a very good show.
Yeah.
So even though you did get that sense it was your Sunday night fodder, it got away with that. But Game of Thrones, I don't think ever really tried to tackle anything really deep on that level.
No.
It was kind of saying that women were objectified and there were prostitutes in Game of Thrones, and that was it. I think when The Last Duel enjoys a couple of scenes where I think it admires the female form maybe a little bit too much for one scene, and then 10 minutes later you're going on to talk about very heavy subjects relating to like the male gaze and sexuality and power, and I did think you kind of want to show both of these. There are a couple of moments where I think it's really important to portray like sexuality in that era and like the dichotomy that men and women face and the differences in how it's perceived. I thought that was important, but there are a couple of moments I was like, you kind of maybe I'm being very cynical, but I thought you do just want to kind of show some, or like you're lingering on the female form maybe a bit too much.
Do you think
for
it
what it's
should-
trying to say? It should be this could be more subtle.
Do you think
it's tackling something really delicate?
Do you think it should have been directed by a woman?
That's a really good question.
And I'm asking you, a man.
Asking me as a man,
And I'm a man asking that question, so what
I
do we
think
know?
the right answer would be to say that you'd have a very different perspective.
I know the script. I know it was Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, but also Nicole Holofcener, I think is her name. She also was involved in the write the script. So
Yeah, there is an element I don't want to spoil, but it you know how I said before, it wasn't a case of what happened. It was about perspective. This film decides about 2/3 in what it's trying to say, and it lets you know very clearly what it is. And you're like, okay. And it's as clear as day. You go, this is not what do we really? It's like this is what happened. Sure. And I don't want to ruin it.
No,
it's worth
that's
it.
fine.
It's worth
Also,
experiencing that transition for
I
yourself.
wasn't trying to say that. It should have been directed by a woman because magically, therefore, it will reveal.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm gonna check it out. If I can't see it at a screen near me, I'll be the first thing I'll watch when it comes on.
And you need to
streaming.
see a drunk Adam Driver dressed as a knight reading Latin to a table of knights.
I'm up for that. James.
Yes.
Did you see the old Batman trailer?
Did I see the Batman trailer? It's very emo Batman, isn't it? It's very kind of like teenage. He's got the floppy hair.
Oh, it's angsty as fuck.
Yeah, it's really graphic novel.
Yes.
And what I took from it when I watched it and then rewatched it, pressing the space bar.
This is the new. Just to explain to me, you haven't
the
seen
Batman,
it.
starring Robert Pattinson as a younger Batman, directed by Matt Reeves,
Who did the Planet of the Apes
Yes,
reboots, which I
did.
liked.
Really like those.
Except for the first one, that was actually Rupert Wyatt.
Yeah.
Little fun fact.
And this is new. It's not connected to anything DC are doing, as far as I know, which tend to be their better films, which kind of dropped that.
Yes.
And yeah, they did a trailer about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago that had this amazing undertone, that Nirvana song, Something in the Way.
Right.
And it's Kurt Cobain humming like something in the way. So, and Andy Serkis is like, "You've received a message, Mr. Wayne." And he's like opening up this Riddler question mark. It's a brilliant trailer, but it's very early on. You couldn't see it.
I mean, also, I knew before I watched this trailer what the cast is going to be. They've got Paul Dano, who's good in everything,
So good.
as the Riddler. And I was like, last time I saw the Riddler, it was Jim Carrey, 1994. That's a very different film. And that's also a film I used to watch when I was sick, actually, as well.
You know who I always thought Jim Carrey would make a great Joker now.
Yeah.
Not Riddler. I think if you cast
yeah.
like Jim Carrey, like almost in a Joaquin, similar, not the same, but a similar Joaquin Phoenix
If
role.
Joaquin Phoenix was busy, they could have got Jim Carrey. And they
Do you not think that would be a really interesting
Yeah,
performance?
yeah,
Not doing the Ace Ventura thing. Like, oh, right.
Of
You
course.
wouldn't get it.
Of course, I love Jim Carrey. I'll always watch him. So yeah, that would have been really cool.
Sorry,
no, who else in the cast is Colin Farrell as? This isn't a spoiler because they've clearly. I haven't seen the film.
Looking very different
because he's the Penguin. Yeah, and
who's Catwoman again?
Zoe Kravitz.
Zoe Kravitz.
But as Colin Farrell is unrecognizable as the Penguin. He looks like Val Kilmer. He looks like a puffy or Richard Kind.
He's clearly in a fat suit and then facial prosthetics all the way over.
But Paul Dano, love. Colin Farrell, love. Zoe Kravitz, always like. Yeah. Robert Pattinson has proved himself
Huge
enough.
love for our Pats.
But okay, so they released the trailer. What do you think?
I really enjoyed it. There are some shots in that trailer, man, which are so cool. And as I was saying, when I was stopping and starting it, every single shot in that trailer, you might say, well, James, it's a film, was painted perfectly for everything. They had this real consistent theme of black and red. Everything was black with a hint of red. And it's like I was saying, it's like a clear graphic novel color palette. And did you ever watch the Batman animated series?
No.
The cartoon? So that's like a really, really good, it's probably like the highest quality early Saturday morning cartoon, and it's really good quality. If it's your first ever Batman content, I recommend to like watch the animated series because it's a great intro into like all the villains. But that animated series was drawn on black paper. So most cartoons are drawn on white paper and you fill out. They started with a black canvas and then painted the color onto it.
Fantastic.
So everything is in shadow. Everything is silhouetted. And watching this, again, graphic novel, it made me think that is going for a really similar, dark, brooding vibe.
Do you know what? I enjoyed the trailer. I thought, wow, this has got a lot going for it, and I look forward to watching this.
Here we go.
It was so full on. The trailer, it was so packed full of ideas.
It was a lot.
I was like, this looks very messy. I'm getting a lot of mess. I'm getting a lot of interesting ideas, a lot of interesting imagery, but I'm worried that you haven't been able to corral this into a cohesive trailer, let alone probably film. And I always get nervous when superhero films have multiple villains or multiple major characters.
Spider-Man 3.
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Just the classic thing. Oh, we're gonna have Penguin and Riddler.
Do you think it's
Catwoman?
very easy to cut together a cool Batman trailer because you've got all the brooding slow motion shots and the flying and the
I think
vengeance. How hard is it to make that look cool?
I think if you have the budget of DC and you have the cool shots, you can make a pretty cool trailer. I mean, it's not, I was talking to friends about this recently about, I don't know if you saw the Licorice Pizza trailer for Paul Thomas Anderson's new film.
No.
Wonderful trailer.
Oh, I think so, maybe.
It's got, Estelle Heim in it. It's an amazing trailer.
Yes, I did. It's like the coming of age tale.
A brilliant trailer. Pretty much shows the entire film.
I hate the films.
I know. But that's what I mean. This trailer is cut to David Bowie's Life on Mars, right? So you cut any trailer to that, it's going to look amazing. So it doesn't. So when I see the Batman trailer, I think, okay, well, you can put your imagery together and you can get your nice look. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, Robert Pattinson as well. I think.
Yeah, great guy.
Very happy
Solid.
with him. He's definitely in that caliber of hopefully gonna do a good job with it.
Such an established actor now.
Yeah,
it's just. I mean, what great projects he's done in the recent years. Good Time, The Lighthouse. Yeah, High Life. I'm looking forward to it.
That one shot where he's walking down the hallway, and I am noticing there is a trend of cool hallway shots, like Rogue One, Luke at the end of Mandalorian,
right?
Like the Daredevil hallway scene. It's becoming a bit of a thing. But like they're just opening fire on a machine gun. You can just it's completely dark. And all you hear is like the light, and the lights are what lighting.
Oh, it's the Darth Vader moment in Rogue One. Yeah,
it's just.
Yeah, and it's only the bullets lighting him up. Yeah. No, that's sick. So that's out March next year? I think it's out early.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually.
I'll give it a go.
It was going to be this year and got pushed.
All right. Can't wait.
Yeah.
All right, should we play a game? Okay, so I had a little think. And, you and I have talked about lots of films we've seen, films we haven't seen. I mean, that's right. And I was thinking, James, you're a videographer. Some may even call you a filmmaker. They're welcome to. And I want to put something to you. I got a call the other day from all the movie studios.
That's nice.
Yeah, all of them on a conference call. They've all made up, and they said, George, listen.
We love James.
We know you're James's agent. I said, yeah. Well, please. He was so good. He's so good. And they said, George, we want to use James as our number one director to go to. All of us have agreed here. He's so good, we want to use him for everything, right? They said, but we've run out of ideas and we've run out of money. So the only way we can get through things is we want to hire James. He will be our number one director, but he has a budget of $1 million per film, and he has to use that $1 million to remake.
This is hard because $1 million is like the smallest large amount of
cinema.
money to make a film.
Yes, it's doable, but in a hard way. So just to summarize, you have to remake these films
remake.
for $1 million.
Yeah.
You can reimagine if you want. You don't have to stick to the story, but you have to keep the title, and it's got to relate to the
Fast
title
ideas,
somehow.
elevator pitch.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna bring him. Okay. Film number one. Let's go for one of like the biggest earning films of all time.
Oh, okay.
Titanic. How are you gonna do Titanic? And bear in mind, if you reimagine this, people will be expecting a film about a boat.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you take it a different direction,
I mean, you've chosen a very, visual effects heavy requirement film there.
a lot of water.
So I think what I do is forget wide shots. Right.
Yeah.
Can't afford them.
No.
I can't be needing to render like a detailed, high-res, full-size Titanic. Forget expensive main characters. Leo DiCaprio, sorry mate, you're out. Kate Winslet, you're out. I'm going to tell a much smaller scale story. Okay, so in Titanic,
right?
There's a great scene in Titanic when Rose and Jack just finish the car scene and they run out onto the deck and they're like fully in love, and then they cut to Anton Deck in the crow's nest and they're just up there and it's like, smell ice, can you? Bleeding Christ. And they just have a bit of banter.
Wait, you being serious?
Yeah.
I've never seen Titanic.
You haven't seen Titanic?
It's
not Anton Deck. Wait, you haven't seen Titanic?
No.
You've not seen Titanic?
No. I've never seen it. I know about the car scene. I think I know what happens at the end.
Yeah.
Wait.
Oh my god.
Wait, was that a joke? You say about Anton Deck?
Okay, it's not actually Anton Deck.
Well, why'd you say Anton Deck then?
It looked like Anton Deck.
That's not just like 1997.
Okay. So this is how that moment happens in Titanic. Rose and Jack, at like the height of their romance, have the car scene.
Yeah.
They come out onto the deck, completely just in love, laughing and
Post-coital,
dancing on the deck. It's the middle of the night. Yeah. And you can hear, and then the camera slowly pans up to the top of the crow's nest, where there's two guys in their black coats freezing to death. Right, it's the North Atlantic, middle of winter, ice all around them, right? And they're distracted and they're looking down at Jack and Rose, thing, and they go, "Oh, could you ever be in love that much?" Blah blah blah, and then they're like, "Oh, it's freezing. I can smell the ice." This is not the direct dialogue. This is something what they say.
Basically, they're not aware of the massive iceberg.
They're not, and then all of a sudden they see huge iceberg right ahead, and then they're like, "Oh my god, cool down, like get the phone, shling, cool it down," and like, "Iceberg right ahead." The guy just says like, "Iceberg right ahead," gets the engine thing, rolls it, the captain spins the wheel, grips it. This whole moment when you realise it's all, and they just like graze the side of the iceberg. God, it's like it happened to me yesterday.
No, fantastic.
But and then you come back up to them and he's like, "Smell ice, can you? Bleeding Christ!" And you never hear from them again.
Right.
So what I would do is I would make $1 million budget thing of just call it the Titanic crow's nest, and it's them two. But you don't just see them right at the end when the iceberg comes. It's the whole time. So they meet up there.
Got it.
Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Chris. Oh, I'm Andy.
Two-man play.
Two-man play. And I think it's kind of going to be like The Trip.
Yep.
Where for most of an episode of The Trip, it's about impressions, it's about referencing films.
Are you describing our podcast?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden at the end, it becomes about relationships, fatherhood, loneliness, success, career.
And then they
like,
die.
Wow, this has tried to be so much. So mine would be like loads of really fun banter and chit-chat. It would still be a 3-hour film. And then at the end, it would be this like, wow, we missed the iceberg, got to go down.
I assume the fact that you can't, I assume the fact that you can't shoot this on the ocean and on water. So would the backdrop just be like a sheet that you get two people to hold up? And sort of like
I'd rent like a blank studio space, build the crow's nest. Right, that can't be that expensive.
Probably not.
And then just like a big rollout of the ocean.
Basically two-man play.
A two-man, yeah. I mean, we know the love story of the Titanic that doesn't exist. I've got a new story that doesn't exist.
James, I think you'll have money to spare on that. I think you'll have money left over.
Do you think I could get a wide shot to establish it? Or you get an iceberg.
I think you could rip some generic iceberg footage from like a David Attenborough film and then just like slot that in there.
I'm still quite shocked you've not seen Titanic.
I grew up in a very anti-Titanic household,
Really?
which is a really weird thing to say. like
weird-
not watching that smut. No, it was
No
more just
junk
like
mail, no Titanic. I don't know why you're Northern, but
I know. When Titanic came out, I was 3 years old, okay? And I think my parents had seen it and they thought it was a load of old rubbish.
Yeah.
And therefore, we never engaged it, never watched it. And I've never returned to it. I think I've gone back and maybe watched, like, the scenes at the end.
scenes.
But also, it's a long
it's
film.
long. It's a 3-hour film.
And I've just never really felt compelled to go back to that. But what I have done, this is really random, is that I went through a phase when I would come back from a party late at night when I was quite pissed of like going down a massive Titanic rabbit hole. Not Titanic the film, I'm talking like the history. I watched
That's a weird
I
thing to
watched
get into,
a
like, when you're
2.5 hour animation that was the Titanic tragedy in real time.
Yeah.
The 2.5 hours from clipping the iceberg
they-
to city, and they rendered
brilliant.
it as an animation.
Brilliant.
And I was hooked because what they capture is how dark it was because it's just you're in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of the night, and how silent it was.
Yeah.
It was just you're in the middle of the ocean. It's just the stillness. I found it so eerie, and I watched the whole thing on my phone, on my bed, like an idiot. Welcome to the
Stinking
20th
like a bar.
century.
Yeah. that film is the iceberg hits right bang in the middle. So you've got an hour and a half.
Oh, I thought it was at the end.
No.
Oh, right.
You've got a whole drama of
my
like the
God.
ships going down, and so the film starts with Rose is 84 years old.
Yeah, the
and
jewel.
They're looking for the necklace, and you've got real footage of the bottom of the Titanic because they actually went to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. They found it.
Yeah.
And then you cut straight to after about 20 minutes of good old like Rose being old, and then you cut into the story, and it's the classic rich girl, poor guy.
Yeah, right.
That whole dynamic. You forget that the ship's going down, and then boom, that scene I just described to you, and then you've got the whole drama. I will defend Titanic, and I'll say it'll get you. It's a tearjerker still.
All right. You know what? But there was room on that door.
Yeah. Oh, clearly, obviously. Leonardo DiCaprio doesn't comment on it. He says, "I have no comment." He gets asked every single interview. He's like, well, "Could you fit on the door?" He's like, "I have no comment."
I'll check it out. Okay.
Should you though? Like, I think you should.
Maybe when I'm ill again.
I think that's an ill one.
That is an ill one because also that takes up the whole afternoon. You don't have to think about what you want to watch. You go, oh, James, that's a brilliant ill one.
I'll be interested to see if it gets you a lump in the throat.
Do you know what I should have also watched when I was ill? A long film that I have seen before, Gladiator. But I haven't seen it for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Gladiator would be a good one. Ridley Scott. Are you not entertained?
I'm doing the song at the end.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
end,
yeah.
I think it's end.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, next one. Okay. How about if it's going to be, Doom Rule the Studios on that conference call? Kevin Feige says we want to remake Iron Man, but you've got to do it for £1 million. So
again,
let me guess. Does it involve like ironing, like actual irons?
It could do. It could involve like the plight of a dry cleaner. No, so again, very expensive visual effects heavy film.
Yeah.
Can't afford Robert Downey because his wage is like 50 times the budget of the film. Okay, so I would go. I'm going to go with the logic that it's a remake. So Kevin's like,
okay.
Oh, well, yeah. He's like, we're where we are, and he wants to go. I need an Iron Man something. I need something called Iron Man.
A straight to DVD,
Straight to
like
DVD
99p version.
So I would use archive footage of what Robert Downey's already done.
I love the imagination.
I would be
Wow.
like, in the very beginning, he's in this huge mansion, like tech weapons
I
billionaire.
think so. I've only seen it once.
And he's got that workshop garage downstairs.
Yep.
I would have like the cleaner's reaction to seeing all this stuff. Because that house is clean. Pepper Potts isn't cleaning. She's too busy running Stark Industries, right?
Sure.
And then like the guy just starts mopping the floor next to the thing. And like, Jarvis is there. It's like, Mr. Stark has said he would like to have the floors and his new Iron Man suit washed. And he's like, what?
Say again?
Yeah.
He wants his what?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't paid for that. There's equipment everywhere.
Head to toe, polished. Yeah. Why didn't you mention that to me?
And he's like, he's opening out the sweaty Iron Man suit that he's been in all day.
Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah, all right, keep it clean for me. Oh my
And
God.
it's like, the Jarvis cam of him like failing to fly around?
Yeah.
And it's just a huge mess, and he's like destroyed his supercar. And the guy, the girl who does the sheets, the bed sheets, is like, have you seen this? He's like, well, yeah. I mean, I don't know what he's doing. He's going out.
I see. This is good.
I reckon I could wriggle Gwyneth Paltrow in for one scene and be like, just they could all be a committee. Like, look,
just loads of Goop products. That's how you got her in.
And he hasn't revealed himself as Iron Man till the end of Iron Man.
Yeah.
So actually, it's just a load of weapon tech gone really wrong.
It's just a load of shenanigans, basically, like told through the kind of upstairs downstairs vibe of the housekeeper and the cleaner there.
I want to know the story behind that huge wealth disparity.
I want to know that as well. And also, it's a nice inversion of the whole like Alfred Batman thing. Instead of it being like Mr. Wayne, it's like Mr. Stark.
I want to see Alfred having a cigarette in the bar at the end of the long day.